Hey everyone, happy Valentine's Day. Welcome back to Beauty School Bobbi. Today we are here with a very special guest, Dr. Jason Hall. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this. This should be fun.
This has been a work in progress of us actually getting to record together. So we're finally here. I think we met or started talking like in the summer.
Yeah. Like 9 months ago now.
Yes. So I love that. I'm so happy to get to talk to you. And actually, one of the reasons that I had originally reached out to you is because you're a plastic surgeon, but you're also very present on social media. So outside of the big names that are on like E! And Bravo and those kinds of shows, I'm like, I never see this. And I loved your energy and excitement about putting yourself out there. So I knew that we had to get together. And I figured you'd be an easy interview since you're already used to doing this all the time.
I appreciate it. I don't quite have the following of all the people on E! Or any of that, but I appreciate it. It'll be, we'll get there. We'll use this to get there.
Exactly.
But this should be fun. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. So one of the main things that that our audience and our listeners, viewers, want to know, or this kind of age range that we have and, that we get to utilize is a lot of people that are getting into finally taking care of their skin. So one of the things that we talked about when we met in your office was different ways that young people can kind of start taking care of their skin, or if they are looking into routes of plastic surgery, kind of how you recommend people starting the process. So obviously you're located in Knoxville, Tennessee. So you're local, you're here. So people can come here to find you. But when people are approaching you at a very young age and are like, what do I need to start doing? What are you recommending at this point?
It's really, that's a great question. And most of, so like just as a little background, at least half of my practice is facial cosmetics. I'm subspecialty trained in kind of neck up surgery. And so I see a lot of that. I really enjoy a lot of that. And one of the beautiful things about plastic surgery is that we kind of are one of the last specialties left that operates from top of the head to the bottom of the feet and everything in between. But a lot of what I do is focused on facial aesthetics. And skincare is a huge part of that. Whether you're 20, whether you're 40, 45, whether you're 65, taking care of your skin is really crucial. And unfortunately, what a lot of my business is correcting damage that could have been prevented or slowed if we'd have taken care of our skin when we were younger. And so now my oldest is almost 14 now, hard to believe, but we've actually kind of gotten her started on prevention because, acne is a real thing. If you can catch that early and prevent that or treat it, kind of get on it early, you're going to help prevent correcting a lot of the scarring, the pigment problems that come with that. And then kind of moving on into, that kind of flares when you're 13, 14, kind of tends to die off a little bit. And then when you're in your 20s with kind of some of the hormone changes that you have then, it can kind of come back. And you see a lot of, I see a lot of patients who are really upset in 24, 25 that they thought their acne was gone and now it's back.
Right.
And so we spend a lot of time treating that. To get to your question about, what can you do? It's really boring. Skincare when you're in your like late teens, early 20s is really boring. Good sun protection with a good physical sunscreen is kind of the first thing that we recommend to everybody. There are great sunscreens now that can go on almost like a foundation. They're tinted sunscreens, and all of our office staff, my wife, my daughters, use that as their foundation. And there's a difference between, not all sunscreens created equal. The physical sunscreens have things like zinc oxide or aluminum oxide and actually reflect the UV light versus, if you've heard of PABA, which is kind of one of the chemicals in the chemical-based sunscreens, which absorb that UV light, but then keep it from hitting your skin. They don't typically work as well. And so all of the sunscreens we recommend are physical sunscreens with those zinc oxides. The next thing is a really kind of a low dose vitamin A, a retinoid. And that is, what that does is kind of help slough that kind of dead, dull surface layer of your skin. Also helps to decrease oil production, so it helps with acne. And that's a good preventive. If you start having acne, a topical retinoid is a great topical treatment to help to kind of dry some of that up. But it can be really irritating. And so when we're talking about retinoids, it's important to use that at night, a couple of nights a week. Don't use it during the daytime. And be working with whoever is prescribing that, because you're going to get dry. And if you start getting windburn, you're using it too much, we need to back off. And you need somebody that kind of coaches you through that as you get started.
Yeah. And I know your wife works with you.
Yes.
So I know that this is kind of something that she does a lot of, and that she does in your office. So your kids, I didn't realize actually until you mentioned your daughter, but like how lucky are they to have you and her like being able to like tag team their skin? Like they're going to have the best skin ever. They're going to look 12 literally forever.
Knock wood.
They will. They're so lucky. That's
Yeah.
amazing. They don't even know. I'm sure at 14, she's probably just like, oh, mom, you know, like, and
she's actually pretty good at it.
Is she?
Last night we were talking and she's like, Dad, where's mom? Where's mom? I've got a zit. I got a zit. You got to do something. So, and mom gets her little extractor and takes care of it.
That's so amazing. Well, I love that. And I love that you all can tag team this business that you all have together. So talk to us a little bit about your practice, what you do there, what your wife does there, and what services that you all offer. So
I kind of only half jokingly, runs the show. I'm like employee number one. So she's a PA by training, has a background in dermatology. And so she focuses on the non-surgical part of it. Really her passion is skincare. That's what kind of got her into dermatology. She loves it, very knowledgeable. And so she does that. She is kind of our second injector, laser expert. So that's kind of her aspect. And that's part of the non-surgical practice. So to kind of keep from muddying the waters, my practice is a full service cosmetic surgery practice. Most of my procedures, it's about a 50-50 split between facial surgery and then breast and body surgery. And then we have a non-surgical arm that is kind of everything you would imagine. Toxins, fillers, laser, non-surgical skincare, hydrofacial. We have an esthetician in our office who's fantastic, who's been with us for a long time. And so, really kind of soup to nuts aesthetics. Yeah. Here in Knoxville. I think that's really cool that you have all of that. I don't know that everybody knows like all of the things that you all do there. Your office is incredible and just welcoming and just amazing. So I really, really, really believe in what you all are doing and love what you guys are doing. And so as people are looking, one of the number one things that students that we meet with for aesthetics, everybody wants to do what your wife is doing or working with you. I mean, everybody wants it. That's the dream job, literally. Like that's what we hear all the time. So as somebody in this area that is hiring for those things, like obviously you all have a lot going on. There's a lot of like balls up in the air that you're juggling in the office, and you have so many people that are there to help you. When you're hiring or looking for estheticians, what are you looking for? What are the kind of qualities? What are the qualities and traits that you're looking for when you are hiring? Yeah, that's a kind of the $1 million question. And our practice, we moved here from Houston in 2015. So almost 8 years ago now. And we've been through kind of every iteration. We kind of laugh that we've in business, in solo practice, medical business, if there's a mistake to be made, we've probably made it. Hiring included. And, what we have found is kind of what all of the people with lots of gray hair will tell you is that you hire for personality. And so the first thing that we're really looking for above anything else is someone who fits with our existing office staff and who we feel is going to fit well with our patient base. then after that, then we kind of look at, what skills are you bringing to the table? What's your experience, and what experiences can we help provide? What training can we add to what you're already bringing to the table? So it's kind of the old adage is that hire for personality, train for the skill.
Yeah. How quickly do you know when you're interviewing somebody whether they're going to be a good fit? Like, do you pick up on it quickly, or what is like? Do you know pretty much right away when you meet somebody if it's going to work or not?
I'm not as good at that as my wife.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you all interview together? Like
Yes.
So first interview right off the bat is you two together?
No, that would be, I think that would be overwhelming.
It would be really
weird. It would scare me. That would scare me, No, typically she will do a phone interview.
Okay.
And then we'll bring candidates in. And it's typically a, kind of the in-person interview is kind of an involved process because they meet everybody in the office.
I love that.
And we sit and talk together. She and I will sit and interview somebody together, but they'll meet everybody. And we get everybody's input because whoever that is has to fit with our team.
Yeah.
We've had people that we thought were awesome that we brought on that the team was kind of like, we're not really sure, and ended up not working out well for anybody.
Yeah.
And so, we very much value the people that work with us, and we want their opinion when we're making an addition to the team.
Yeah, I love that. I think that that's so important. I think that there's not a lot of people that value that. I think in this industry, something that we talk about a lot is that there's a lot of ego in the beauty industry.
No, you gotta be kidding.
There's a lot of ego. And so I think it's awesome that you like recognize that, like, if it's kind of like happy wife, happy life, but like with the team, like your team they're the ones working directly with these people. Like you kind of get to like dip out or whatever, but they're the ones that are going to be there working with that person. So I think it's so smart that you involve them in that process. And I think as a candidate, like, I think it also has to make them feel better to be like, oh, this is who I'm going to be working with. You're probably getting a more honest interview also, because it's not just like, okay, I just need to win you over. You know, it's kind of like you're being thrown in to be like, no, this is everyone and this is how we work. So I think that that's really smart.
Yeah. I heard one time it's like, if you don't want to eat lunch with somebody, it's not somebody you're going to want to work with.
Right. Yeah. No, definitely. I think that's awesome. So how many employees, you have one esthetician working with you in the office. How many employees do you have on staff?
7.
Okay. Yeah. So it's not like huge. It's not a big, but you guys do a lot.
It's a busy, everybody has their place. It's busy.
Yeah.
But it's a fun, we try and make it fun.
Yeah.
Because it's cosmetic surgery. It's aesthetics. It should be happy. It shouldn't be a stressful, hateful work environment.
Right. Definitely.
And patients can see that.
100%.
I mean, if you're miserable at work and whether you're answering the telephone or taking somebody's vital signs or doing an injection, if you're miserable and hate your job, people are going to see that.
Right. Definitely. No. And you've only been here 8 years, which
8 years.
I thought it was like longer. So it is crazy the name that you've made for yourself in this time.
Oh, well, thank you.
I think that's awesome. I thought you've been here for way longer. So that's really
there are days that it feels like it.
Yes. No, I'm sure. So as an esthetician or somebody that would want to be coming in that role, how much responsibility are you putting on them as far as like right away? Are you looking for somebody with experience, or would you rather have somebody that's kind of like maybe not fresh out of school, but somebody that hasn't been trained in a different way so far? Do you have a preference on that?
That's a great question. And the answer is kind of, it depends. It depends on kind of what the business's needs are at the time. There's certainly pluses and minuses to both. Plastic surgery, the skills and the expectations of the patients are going to be a little bit different than if they're going to a non-surgery related spa, for example.
Yeah.
And so that's something that took us a long time to realize, is that there are a little bit of a different expectation there, and from the patients. And so, it's great. The estheticians that have been out for a long time, that have a lot of experience, certainly bring that experience, and we value their insights. Plastic surgery is a little different. And so there's a part of that we have to kind of shift expectations or treatment recommendations, I guess, versus a new grad who has learned it all, but really doesn't have the practical experience to apply that. Certainly the new grad is going to require a lot more onboarding, but the more experienced person, we may be working together to say, okay, you had these services available. Now you've got these services, plus you've got this, that, all the way up to operating room, ablative laser treatments. And so you're not limited in this window. You've got a lot more that you can kind of incorporate in terms of treatment recommendations.
Yeah. How much is soft skill? How much is it of just like how to talk to people in a different way, the verbiage that you use? I mean, is that a big part of the training of somebody that's coming in to this kind of environment that may be coming from a spa? Like, just kind of as you're talking, I'm like, there's certain things that you say and ways that you say it. I'm sure that's different than being in a spa. So is that a big part of it or not really?
I think it is. It's also one of those things. I think we're still trying to learn how to best impart that. We haven't really gotten a great way to teach that yet. Because in cosmetics, if you're coming in because you're talking about wrinkles and lines and things, you don't really want a cast of thousands when you're in a small, intimate, private office,
right?
Of saying, now you want to say this, you don't want to say that. And so it can be a little bit difficult to teach that in a very concise way. There's a lot of, I think for me, from a surgical standpoint, my consultation has evolved over time as you realize what works and what doesn't, and ways to talk about things with people that works really well, and ways that kind of falls flat and may sound really sciencey and nice to another surgeon, but patients kind of eyes glaze over and like, I don't know.
Right. Yeah. So that probably isn't something that is like taught at school. I mean, is that something that you really just have kind of had to figure out through trial and error a little bit?
Absolutely.
Are there times you put like, is there something, and you don't have to say it right now, but is there something that stands out in your mind that you're like, I can't believe I said that like forever ago when you were first starting? I still like obsess over embarrassing moments in my life. Like I don't ever forget it. So is there anything like that you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I used to say this, or I can't believe I like said this, that you've evolved from, or no?
I wouldn't say so. I'm pretty candid with people in the room.
Right.
I don't really hold back.
You've always been like that.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of. I was a really shy kid.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I was really shy. I was terrible with girls. Awful. When I was like a teenager, but over time, I think that openness and honesty is one of those qualities that I think people value. I think people come to plastic surgery assuming that me as the surgeon is going to kind of pull the wool over our eyes and tell them what they want to hear so that they'll sign a check and have surgery. But when you tell somebody that you don't need what you want, and you need something that's really a lot less than what you think you do. A lot of time, actually every time, I've never said something like that, or tell somebody, for example, have the really hard conversation that, I know that you want this, but you need to lose weight before we can do it safely. That's a tough conversation to have, but I've never had that conversation with somebody and then had them not look at me and go, thanks, I appreciate you being honest and telling me that what I want's not best for me right now.
Right.
And we give them resources, they go off, they lose the weight they need to lose, and they come back and they have surgery and get a nice result.
Yeah. Well, I think that that's awesome. And I think that that's obviously like something that keeps your clients coming back to you when you know that they're going to be honest. So I want to hang tight right there. We're going to take a second to hear a word from our sponsor and we'll be right back.
The Beauty School Bobbi podcast is brought to you by Tennessee School of Beauty, the leader in cosmetology education since 1930. As one of the first nationally accredited cosmetology schools in the nation, TSB has been recognized by Modern Salon as one of the top 10 beauty schools in America and voted the top cosmetology school in East Tennessee for 28 consecutive years. Offering programs in cosmetology, aesthetics, medical aesthetics, and makeup through MUD as MUD's first standalone satellite location in the United States. TSB has over 20,000 graduates and specializes in helping graduates open their own salons. Financial aid is available to those who qualify, and there's no additional charge for out-of-state tuition. So come see me to start your career in the beauty industry at Tennessee School of Beauty today.
Once again, thank you to all of our sponsors. So we are back. So now I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about you and what you're doing right now. So you have, like I said, made a presence for yourself, a name for yourself on social media. So you have a podcast, which I think is so fun. So tell me a little bit about how that started.
Well, thank you. First of all, I'm glad to know at least one person has listened to at least one episode. It started because of kind of paying attention to what's being put out on the internet, and the kind of growth of a lot of these community boards. I don't want to name anybody to keep myself out of trouble, but a lot of these forums where patients write in about their own experiences and are giving advice to other people. And, what typically tends to happen, as you know as well as anybody else, is that the sensational stuff tends to get ranked higher and higher and higher. Mm-hmm. And the real, and people take that as real information, like one person's good or bad experience as real information about whatever procedure it is that they're looking for. And I was seeing a lot of people come in with just bad, wrong information. Mm-hmm. And so the podcast really started to try and get legitimate information about procedures, recovery, do's and don'ts, all of that out into the world where people can listen to it because, who wants to read all of that?
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's easy. And the way that you put the content out, it's really easy to be like, I've seen stuff on your Instagram where I'll just like be scrolling and I'll be like, oh, awesome. I've never thought about this before. This is great. Like, I just think like, even if you're not looking for a particular procedure or anything, like there's still like, oh, that's good to know. And there's correct information being put out there. So I love that you saw like a need for that. I do want to ask you, because obviously your plate was full already. So I want to kind of speak to like the business minds that might be listening or watching. At what point were you like, okay, I'm going to take this on. This is something else I can do. Because obviously, like I said, your practice is busy. You're a dad, you're a husband. Like, how did you decide that this was something that you were like, okay, I want to devote time to this?
It's so if you ask my wife, we have very different, and we're in this together and have been from the very beginning. We have very different views. She is the kind of the flying 300 feet off the deck, sees all the details, and I'm kind of the 30,000 foot view, kind of bigger picture. And it, I saw a need for information and just said, how hard can a podcast be? It's just talking. How hard can that be? And I tell you, my hat's off to people like you who have big shows that are well produced that, put my little thing to shame. It's hard work. It is a lot to put together a good show. And I'm still working on it, and I'm not to y'all's level by any stretch. It is a lot of hard work.
Yeah. And so that time, like, I know that only because I know with us scheduling and stuff, I know you've separated time in your schedule and you're like, this is the time of my week that I devote to doing things like this, to making the videos and all of that stuff. Is that what you think is most important? Is just being like, okay, I have the time and I'm just going to dedicate it to that. There's so many people that are entrepreneurs that are doing so many other things on top of, we'll say normal jobs, real job, whatever we want to call it, on top of their, whatever's bringing in the money. Cause I think a lot of times this is obviously like passion project and it's to the side and it's something you want to focus on and follow, but it's probably not the main way that you're getting your income. So is that a piece of advice that you would give, is like just dedicate the time to do it when you already have a full schedule, or how does it work with you?
I think that in the beginning, a lot of the things that I was doing social media wise, or is some of these other kind of side projects, were nights and weekends.
Okay.
With this, I really looked at things and said, I kind of got tired of working on all these little side projects, nights and weekends, and said, this is something that is going to help the patients. This, I'm doing this for our, current and future patients. And I want to devote time during the business day. My kids are getting older. I don't want to be working nights and weekends when I could be hanging out with them, because don't have that many more years left with them in the house. And so I said, spend some time sharpening the axe. And so I did. I blocked, an afternoon a week off where it's devoted to the business side of the practice, whether it's filming, whether it's social media planning, going over our kind of the back end business stuff with my wife and the accounting folks. We have some dedicated time for that. And that has been awesome.
Yeah. I think it's important to schedule that. And I think obviously, I don't know, when you went to school to be a plastic surgeon, like there's so much that you're learning that you're like, okay, well, I have to get the skill down, right? Like you're like, I need to learn. But like, I'm sure that you never thought, when you were in college and doing all this, that like, okay, cool, a podcast is in my future, but you saw the value. Like you saw, and we were talking before we started recording, and like, it might not be like a, one episode equals X amount of dollars or whatever. It's getting that information out there. And I think that that's so awesome that that's your purpose and why you're doing this. I know it's going to help your practice. And I think it's really cool to see, or that we get to watch like how this grows and all of that stuff. But I do think it's really cool that you were like, there's a need for this. There is value in this. Like, I think a lot of people don't place the value on it because it's not just dollars moving, right? But I love that you saw the value in it. And then you were like, this is important and this does matter. And we do need to have a social media presence and we do need to get this information out there, and correct information matters. So I think it's funny to think about you being like in college, like learning, surgery, like you're a doctor, like surgery, but then this whole other side of your business at this point that you just figured out. I think it's awesome.
Well, there's a lot of that is, as you were talking about the podcast side of it, I think one of the things that differentiates the podcast part of it from social media, and people that know me and have known me for the last 8 years around here know that I went through a long time where I was really dogging the social. I didn't want to be involved. It was like very esoteric and it was, very fleeting, and you spend all this time crafting a post that goes away. And one of the great things about podcasting as a medium is that it's I guess the web people call it evergreen content. It's out there, it's around, and it doesn't go anywhere. And if people are searching for that content, they're going to find it.
Right.
And so that's the other thing that really drew me to the podcast medium, is that it's not an Instagram post that's going to be gone in 24 hours. It's going to be around.
Yeah. And like you said, it's stuff that you're talking about anyways. Like you're not, I know the content and being like, okay, what content do I want to put out? But it's stuff that you're talking about all day with clients anyways. So you have that knowledge there being like, I'm just kind of regurgitating what I'm saying all the time anyways. I don't have to like come up with these new ideas, but it's getting it out there in a way that it's going to stay out there, like you said.
Yeah, and and that's what I thought when I got into it.
Yeah.
It was like, oh yeah, it's just gonna be, I talk about this stuff every day.
Right.
I had, facelifts and breast augmentation, rhinoplasties every day. This is gonna be really easy.
Yeah.
But putting it in getting that in a tight package that's not a rambling, meandering conversation when you're just talking to the camera is very different from having a conversation with another person who's asking questions, who you're trying to kind of get that to. So it was a lot. I talking beforehand, it's a lot harder to put that out than I thought it was going to be. I was like, after a couple episodes, I was like, I bit off way more than I could chew here.
Yeah, but you stuck with it. And now it's like, now it's your thing that you do. And I think it's awesome. Like, I think that just committing to that and being, but is that how you are as a person? Like, are you kind of like, once you start something, you finish it anyways? Like, or do you kind of like have phases of like interest? Like, are you somebody who goes through a bunch of different hobbies, or are you like, this is what I'm doing, I'm going to get really good at it, and then I'm going to move on?
Yes and no. Yes and no. So in the yes part, I went to my training back. I'll go kind of tell a little story. When out of medical school, I went to general surgery and I was going to be a pediatric general surgeon.
Okay.
So that was kind of the goal.
Which you would have been amazing. Like, you would have been awesome with kids too, but.
I ended up there kind of roundabout.
Yeah.
But then through my general surgery training, I kind of got turned on. I went to trained in Texas, and the plastic surgery department was awesome. And a lot of my buddies in my intern class were integrated plastic surgery. So they mashed into plastic surgery and kind of, we all started together and then they branched off halfway through. And so I got to see what they were doing. And I was like, awesome. Like, you guys are like putting fingers back on and doing all this crazy, the stuff that you see on TLC.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, this is awesome. I'm going to do this. And just so happens that one of our co-residents didn't make it through their training, and they knew I was interested, and they said, "Hey, you want to jump ship and cross over to plastic surgery?" I was like, "Look, I committed to do general surgery. I committed to the 5 years. I love what I'm doing right now. I do want to do this, but I love it. So no, I'm going to stick where I am and finish." Couldn't be happier that I did it.
Yeah.
It would have shortened my training a little bit, but then, to the no side of that, I've started and stopped guitar lessons. Like, I don't know how many times,
Yeah.
there's all sorts of those things that kind of come and go.
Yeah.
With podcasting, I said, I'm doing 10,
Okay.
come hell or high water, I'm doing 10 episodes.
Yeah.
And then at 10 episodes, if I hate it, I'll stop.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's kind of fun. And it's in patients coming back and saying, I heard your podcast on Tummy Talk. This is really cool. I thank you. I'm like, okay, that's why I do it.
Right. Exactly. And it's not even, like, obviously you can make a lot more money if you fill that afternoon with doing surgeries and stuff. Right. But it's really cool that you do see the value of getting that correct, real, true information out. Because I think, when our purpose is just kind of above it's easy to get stuck in it. Like, it's easy to just put your head down and be like, this is what I do and this is what makes money and blah, 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 and like getting caught in that. But I think what I love about people and what I'm seeing and what I thought was so interesting about you is that you do see the value in it. And you do take the time to say, like, you know what, I'm going to do something else on this afternoon and I'm going to give back. Because I think that that's kind of what we all need to be kind of focused on. Now, if you were talking to somebody that's like, I want to be a plastic surgeon, would you be like, okay, just know that there's this other part of it that is valuable to your business? Have you been doing this social media, podcasting, all that stuff long enough to be like, I would recommend it for other people that are, becoming plastic surgeons? Or are you like, I wouldn't even tell them to get into that at this point, just kind of focus on the plastic surgery stuff?
It would kind of depend on where that person was in their career path. Mm-hmm. If you're in medical school or if you're a resident, like, hopefully you don't have time for social media.
Right.
Like, you need to be learning how to be a good doctor and how to be a good surgeon. Once you're out, it really depends on your career pathway. I think if you're in private practice, specifically if you're in cosmetics or want to grow the cosmetic side of your practice, you can't not have a social media account. I was actually talking to a younger plastic surgeon over the weekend about this exact thing. And he was saying, I'm not good at this. I'm not really that into the whole social media thing. And I think that with us, with anybody, whether you're a surgeon, an esthetician, an injector, a mechanic, it doesn't matter what you do. If you're good at what you do, people are going to find you. Mm-hmm. Because word of mouth is still really probably the most powerful form of marketing out there.
Mm-hmm.
Social media just makes you more visible.
Yeah.
It'll maybe shorten the lag between being new and being busy.
Mm-hmm.
But the most important thing is your results.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know that everyone watching, like with your hair, is going to think that when we put this up that you're actually in the beauty industry, or that you're a hairstylist. We're going to have to put on there, like
best hair and plastic surgery.
Exactly.
Right there.
We're going to have to put something on. But because I know that we kind of talked about this a little bit as far as you being a part of the beauty industry, right? And one of the things that we talk about a lot on the show is the way that like hairstylists, estheticians, whatever trade that you're in, right? Like you've got to learn that skill. But social media is such a huge part of getting clientele in, and getting people in your chairs and what you need to be doing. And like we've joked that like with 1,500 hours of cosmetology, like 750 of that needs to be crash courses on how to do all of this stuff because it is so important. With you being on a different side and outside of the beauty industry, I mean, do you think that that's a point of, something that it needs to be added in? Or are you still thinking that like the main focus just kind of needs to be your skills first, and then this would be like an extra great second if you can do it?
I think it would be, in speaking to somebody who runs the beauty school, I think that the most important thing is making sure people are good at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
But then, an elective, and so I don't know how the classes are set up, if you can have elective hours or extra hours for an honors diploma in some of the business part of it, social media being a part of that. But, how do you go out and incorporate? Who do you talk to incorporate? What do you have to do? What paperwork do you have to fill out? How do you get a chair in one of these places? What are the drawbacks of having a chair in one of these like rent a booth spots versus getting signed on with one of the larger hairstylists and working your way up to being a master stylist?
Right.
What are the pros and cons, and how do you make that work? Because you've got, how many people are in a class every year?
So we have like 275 students, like right now. So that'll be our like normal for the year. Like that's kind of throughout the year, how many people, and half of that is aesthetics. I mean, it's crazy how fast that's growing, but yeah.
But so you have 250 people in the class.
Mm-hmm.
There are some of those, just pure statistics, some of those are going to be really entrepreneurial minded and are going to want to go out and strike out on their own and, hang a shingle and do their own thing. And some people are going to want to go work for a more established place and build up a clientele, and the needs there are going to be completely different.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
it'd be hard to say, make everybody do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that having that as an option would really, talk about standing out as a school. If you were able to kind of have a track that people could learn the business side of it too.
Yeah, for sure. We've done a lot of episodes recently on like going viral and interviews and people that like local people that have gotten, how do you, like, that's awesome to have that many views on TikToks, but how are you getting that person to come see you for a facial and those conversations? So there is, we're getting to watch this in a different way. I mean, we both grew up without social media, right? So we are still like navigating this and figuring out kind of where this all lands. And there are people that are way better at it, faster at it, like all of that stuff than us. But I think just jumping in and realizing that it is like an important part, but also, like I said, like the value for the business that it brings, maybe not just specific dollar amounts, but there is like a value there. So I think that's.
Well, I think you touched on it. I think it was it Morgan Cantrell?
Morgan Carroll, yeah.
Carroll, yeah. I was listening to that, a couple days ago.
Do you know how happy it makes me? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but like, do you know how happy it makes me when you're like, I listened to that episode? Yeah. Like, I love it. Like, I like to think that you're just like bopping around listening to Beauty School Bobbi. Yeah. Like, I love it.
It's on my phone. Yeah, totally. Well, I mean, the title was like going viral. I was like, oh, I'm going to learn something here.
Yeah.
But I think that as the two of you were talking, she said something. It's like, it is. What's the goal with social media? I mean, do you want somebody in Pakistan or Washington State following you and commenting on all your stuff who's never going to come in and see you?
Right, exactly.
Or is it more important to have, 1,000 followers that are all local, 500 of whom want to call you for an appointment.
Yeah.
I mean, I would argue, and kind of the way I've always looked at social media is local first.
Mm-hmm.
Like that my Instagram account, I'm not a blue check mark with 1 million followers, doesn't really bother me because more and more people are coming in the office going, I follow your Instagram account. I see you on YouTube, and I like kind of what you put out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of feel like I know you now.
Yeah. And I think that's so special. And I think especially for what you do, I know how important that is. And I know that like them feeling comfortable with you and like already kind of having an idea, like I'm sure. And I wonder if you're going to start to notice this actually, and tell me if this happens, but I wonder if you're going to start noticing that like people are coming in a little more educated because they've watched, like the questions might be different, that your patients are asking because they may have already heard, something that you said. So they might even be like the questions might change for what you're hearing. Has that happened yet? Or
I've noticed consults, the discussion is deeper.
Oh, cool.
The discussions, there's a little bit more kind of chit-chatty time of like relationship building, because the patients don't come in with a list of questions and they pull their phone out and they're like, I've got a few notes for you here. And because they've heard a lot of it. And then there have been multiple times that I kind of start explaining procedures or how long. They're like, oh yeah, I listen to your podcast. I know.
That's
like,
so cool.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's awesome. I think that's only going to get more and more common for you too. So I'm excited to see how even in like 2 years, like what it looks like.
It's the cool thing about it is that it's in the room. I'm like in the consult, like I'm pretty chatty. Like the nurses, MA stands there, like just rolls her eyes and start talking about somebody's like favorite football team and their hobbies, and they're like, oh please. But it allows more time for relationship building, which is really kind of the foundation of any like doctor-patient relationship or client provider relationship. Is you got to know somebody and like them. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you have a great outcome, but if the relationship's not there, it's not going to be as good as it could be.
Yeah, and like you said, with word of mouth, to be like, no, go to Dr. Hall. Like he's amazing. He spent time talking to me. Got all my questions. I mean, all of that stuff definitely matters. And as women, like that's obviously kind of what we're talking about. Is like making sure you're not creepy. So that's good.
Yeah. The women have a very high EQ, and the creepy vibe is picked up on pretty quickly.
It is, definitely. So I have kind of a random question for you. Okay. But if you weren't doing this, if you weren't a plastic surgeon, what were you going to do? What was your next path, or what do you think you would have done?
Gosh, I mean, this is kind of funny. My daughter was helping me cook the other day, and she asked me the same question. And at that point in my life, so I was a chemistry major in college, if that tells you anything. What
it tells me is that I believe that you are shy. And when you said like I was really shy when I was younger, like I believe that completely.
Oh, totally. It was like that was my jam.
Yeah.
If this tells you how nerdy I was in college, chemistry major, biology minor, and a German minor.
Wait, what?
How yeah.
Like, did you have a social, like, did you go out, like, when you were in college? Like, did you go have fun, or were you, like...
the college that I went to,
and I'm so scared.
For any of you who go to or went to Wake Forest, excuse me, was not the most fun place on the planet.
Okay.
It was, I was in a fraternity and had a good time, but it was not, certainly wasn't the fun quotient that my buddies that went to UT or pretty much any other college in the United States had. But, I went abroad for 6 months. And then, so that kind of compressed the amount of time that I had to get ready for medical school and try and get in. But, to answer your question, what was I going to do? If I didn't get in medical school, I was probably going to go get a graduate degree in chemistry.
Okay.
Honestly.
Yeah. Did you have any plan of what you wanted to do with it? Or were you just kind of like going through? Isn't it crazy to like look back? Because now you're like, okay, I got it together. Like you eventually figure it out, right?
Yeah.
But isn't it nuts that like back then being so young that you were in charge of like making those decisions? I'm like, who was telling me not to do these things or what I was doing? Like I'm just like figuring it out. And I look at the girls or the students at the school and I'm like, you don't have to have it figured out. Like I promise it's gonna, like just keep going. Like don't give up because you're not supposed to know. And looking back, I'm like, I was a baby making these decisions. It's so weird.
I remember now, I told my daughter this the other day. If I didn't get into medical school, I was going to get a graduate degree and I was going to teach.
Yeah.
And that was going to be
being a teacher.
Yeah. I was going to teach organic chemistry. That was what I really liked.
I love that. I love that your backup is like a professor. You're not like, I was going to go like surf and like live you're like, I wasn't.
There are some plastic surgeons that are cool like that. They're like, I was in a band and I was going to be on the professional surf tour and play rock and roll. Like, no, I wasn't that cool.
That's hilarious. I love that. Well, I wonder if you would have had like a teaching podcast, if you would have been like super famous on YouTube for like, do your kids watch any of like the teachers on YouTube, like the learning shows? Like, do they watch any of this?
What is the
Maybe
one?
mine's like younger.
Mr. Betts.
Okay.
Is my I get introduced to Mr. Betts. And so the kids will sing like he's like into history. And so it's all these history shows.
Do you want to sing any songs?
Yeah, I could. I probably could. If you wouldn't have put me on the spot, I could probably start like the 1776 kind of thing. Yeah. So
I love that. So that's funny. So you would have been a professor.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about going back to teach plastic surgery stuff?
I kind of look at the podcast as doing.
Okay,
honestly.
cool. Yeah, no, I mean, I think absolutely it is.
And just general everyday office consultations and interactions with the staff. I mean, there's a lot of teaching that happens every day. And it's a lot of fun because the way our office is set up, where I sit and record the podcast is like 30 feet away from the operating room.
Mm-hmm.
And so during the day, when our injector has a couple of free minutes, if I'm doing, a brow lift or a facelift or something that the anatomy is relevant to her day-to-day treatments, she'll come down and watch, and we'll go over, she'll get to see live anatomy right there. And we can kind of talk little esoteric things about injectables or about skincare. I'm doing a aggressive laser. She'll come down and watch, and we'll talk about, skin biology as we're doing all that. So I kind of get the teaching part of it just by nature of what I do.
Yeah. Well, I think that one of the things that I hope people take away from this is that you can make your path and do the things that you're passionate about, like no matter which direction you go. I think it's so important to make sure that you're not getting stuck in the routine and just getting stuck in the, I'm a stylist or I'm whatever it is that you do. Like we can talk about so many different professions right now of being like, follow the things that you love, still continue to do the things that you feel like you're made to do or motivated to do, or the things that make you happy. Like all of this started with just me wanting to do it and wanting to make sure that people knew how awesome the beauty industry was. And now like it just keeps growing, but when the right move is, and when like the next right step is supposed to happen. And I think it's so cool that you've been able to do that and not just be like, I'm a plastic surgeon and that's all I do. And, because I think that that's normal. I think that's common. So I really think it's awesome that people have got to meet you and kind of hear the different things that you do and the different ways that you do it.
Yeah. Oh, I thank you for that. And I, kind of going back to the question that you'd asked just a second ago, I think that with a lot of your audience who is considering a career in the beauty industry or is in the middle of their 750 hours of training, and I would imagine a lot of them are probably scratching their head and going, I don't know what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what I'm really, I'm stressed out. I don't know where I'm supposed to be right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think if there's one bit of advice that could be very helpful is just don't shut any doors. Don't make decisions that are going to close doors down the road, and keep your options open, because eventually you're going to come to what it is that you want to do, that you look and you say, okay, I can make a viable career out of doing this. And then you have the option to be able to do that. as opposed to saying, well, no, that's too hard. I don't really want to do that right now. This isn't speaking to me today.
Mhm.
You know, I don't want to do that. And then you find yourself with a very narrow number of choices when you finally get to the point where you're ready to make decisions, as opposed to just saying yes and doing everything. And then that your range of options then is going to be much, much broader.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's so important. And I don't think it's necessarily something that everyone's encouraged to do. I definitely think it's more accepted now to be able to do different things and not just being like, okay, I'm a teacher, so I only do this or I only do that. Like, we're opening ourselves up more. But I do think it takes people like you or people hearing a story like yours to say, like, even a plastic surgeon, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, can do these different things. So I just think it's so special, and I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
So thankful that we got to have you, and
Well,
thankful
thank you.
For everything that you're doing. And obviously, like, we're all excited to follow your path. And so where can we follow you? Where can we hear the podcast? Where can we follow you? I know on Instagram is where I mostly am following you. So tell us where we can find you.
So Instagram @jhillmd. Website is drjasonhall.com or jhillmd.com, either one. And then the podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Overcast, kind of wherever you listen to podcasts,
Mhm.
it's out there. It's called The Trillium Show with Dr. Jason Hall. Kind of a mouthful of a title. It's not as cool as Beauty School Bobbi, but it's, that's where we are.
Awesome.
So,
well, we'll make sure we tag you, and we'll put all the links down below in the subscription. So if you are listening today, make sure that you are subscribing. Leave us a 5-star review. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you ring that bell so that you are notified when the new episodes are coming out. And if you're in Knoxville, I cannot say enough about Dr. Jason Hall. He's amazing. Go see him. Go check him out. If you're thinking about having any procedures, definitely go in and check out Trillium as well, the aesthetics.
Yes.
So we need to get your wife on next time too. So
that would be fun.
Actually, we'll do a separate episode so we can talk about you in the episode. So we'll do one just with her next time. So thank
just
you.
a girl show.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. We'll see you next time, guys. Bye.